Hi, this is Kyle Grossmiller. Welcome back. This is part 3 in our 4-part demo series about FlashStack Automation with Cloud Foundation and SmartConfig. In this phase, we're going to talk about the intermediary parts. So we've got ESXi hosts that have been built by SmartConfig. Now we're going to automatically prepare them for use within VMware Cloud Foundation, and then show deployment of SDDC Manager. One of the things that we're providing is a kickstart script for ESXi. This will do some things like install ESXi on our boot from SAN volume, tag our management VLAN with a VLAN ID, which SmartConfig requires, enable SSH in the ESXi shell, set the VM network VLAN, and then finally set and enable NTP. One of the things that our scripts requires is a MAC address listing. So in this setup, we are using a Windows DHCP reserved range that's based upon MAC address. So in these instructions, we just showed a simple way within UCS Manager to basically output MAC addresses for those ESXi hosts. So that's out in the CSV file. You can then move it over to this CSV file, which is in the format our PowerShell script requires. MAC, which is basically static IP address I want to assign it to, MAC address, and then the domain name or the host name of it. This PowerShell script requires 3 basic pieces of information. It requires a DNS forward and reverse lookup zone. It requires a DHCP scope. Both these things must be pre-set up. You can see here I've already done this in our example. So with that, we'll kick off this script. So we'll type in our DHCP scope name. We'll then enter in our DNS domain name. And then finally, we'll enter in that comma-separated value file, which includes IP address, MAC address, and host name. So we'll let it run and do its thing. It just takes a second to run typically, or maybe a few seconds. And then what we'll do is we'll hop over to both our DNS as well as DHCP scope. So we'll start with the DHCP scope and refresh it. Here we can see we've now got a reserved range based on those MAC addresses we put in for all 8 of our ESXi hosts that are in that UCS chassis. Meanwhile, if we look at DNS, something else the SmartConfig requires is forward and reverse lookup zones to be set. And so we'll refresh these, and as we can see, we've now got 8 different ESXi hosts that are available there. Great. So one thing that we do have to do is reboot UCS servers, or at least restart the management network on ESXi in order for it to get its new address that we've assigned to it. This can potentially be a career limiting event, as I've heard it described. So basically what we did with that script is log into the Fabric Interconnect and then reboot those hosts. So please make sure you're connecting to the right Fabric Interconnect when you do that previous command. With that being said, now we can see that our ESXi host has been brought back up, and now we can move on to VMware CloudBuilder deployment. So VMware CloudBuilder, similar to SmartConfig, is setting out on a separate ESXi host from our FlashStack configuration. We log into it, agree to a EULA. We're doing VMware Cloud Foundation without VxRail. We check our prerequisite list here. We then download an Excel spreadsheet, which is available here, where you input things like usernames and password, license files, host and networks that are going to be in use. As you can see here, here are our 3 VLANs that we put in earlier in part 2. And then here are our 4 vSAN ready ESXi hosts. And then lastly, here's things like vCenter and SDDC Manager. Furthermore, we've already pre-input forward and reverse DNS names for all of the CloudBuilder components that are required. So with that, we will upload that Excel spreadsheet to the CloudBuilder virtual machine, which will then bootstrap our deployment of SDDC Manager. So once this part finishes with CloudBuilder, we no longer need CloudBuilder. This is literally just to get us to the point of having SDDC Manager stood up. As you can see, it runs through a quick validation to start, and then it actually runs through all of these different steps to deploy the management domain for Cloud Foundation. I like this because it's a very graphical representation of what's happening. So if there ever is an error, you have a very good idea of where it is and how to trace it and figure it out. So here we can see our deployment has completed. It can take a little bit of time, and then we'll launch SDDC Manager. So SDDC Manager is the single pane of glass from which we'll be deploying workload domains, which is the next part of this video. So please tune back in for part 4. And as always, thanks a lot for watching.